Well, on a recent cruise, I decided to take on an ATV adventure. So we joined Eric's ATV Adventures in Curaçao. Now, the day started with some heavy rains, and that brought the birdies out. So we'll start with some happy birdies. Because they know that we are new to riding ATVs, they start with some instructions. So they gather us around, they give us all helmets and goggles, and show us the basics. So the idea is that they start up the machines, they put them in gear, you hop on, and all you really have to control is the throttle, which is one thumb trigger, and the brake, which you grab with the other hand, and then steering left and right. We're all going to be riding caravan style, so people won't get out of control. So it was a chance to try out an ATV and travel around without having to know a lot about it. Well, here we are. We're getting ready to start our ATV tour. I'm all ready. Gonna have a big adventure. So we started with a training course where we drove around some pylons out in the middle of nowhere just to make sure we were comfortable with turning and accelerating, all of that. And then we started heading down some of the back roads, and then eventually heading onto the big roads where we drove caravan style along with traffic for probably about half an hour. Now, we had someone from the company in the front and someone in the company from the back. And what they would do is when we were driving on these busy roads, they would park themselves and actually stop traffic to let us make our turns and things like that. And so it was a bit like we were on parade through Curaçao. Our first stop, which was about an hour in, was at an aloe vera farm. And here we had a chance to get off the bikes for a little bit, rest our thumbs, rest our bums, and get a drink, and prepare ourselves for the next leg of our grand adventure. Then as we got further out, we started to leave behind more and more civilization, and so we were actually heading out onto some private lands in the far eastern side of the island. So as we went further, we saw no other vehicles, and we started to go very much off-road, bumping around, splashing through puddles, things like that. And then they took us to a picturesque area and had us pose so that we could get some photographs to be able to post on our social media. So here I am, have my modeling session, driving that ATV, storming forward, looking macho, putting my glasses on, with my bandana around my neck, and the background behind me. Oh yeah. We then went out to the edge of the island where the terrain was very rough and bumpy and stood to look at the crashing waves. As you can see here, they would come piling in and made for very dramatic pictures. And so they brought us together to try and get some footage of all of this, at least of this specific spot. They then posed us in another sort of everyone squat down and look at something. And what I found is I was not willing to squat down like everyone else. If you look at my foot, you can see one of my 2 feet are turned because the ground was so rough here. And I thought, I'm not gonna squat down because I may not be able to get back up. So I moved away from the splashing waves at that point and decided just to take some footage of where we were. And you can see here as we look around, there was nobody anywhere. It was such a contrast from where I'd been on this cruise ship with thousands of people and in these busy ports. And then we got on these ATVs and we went off-road, and we ended up in the middle of nowhere, as you can see. So this was actually nice. It was very enjoyable, a nice break from all the chaos. But then, of course, we have our selfie posing areas. We get off of the vehicles and we do a little hiking. And he said, wear your helmets, you're going to want them. So we started to go up the side of this mountain. Now where we're heading is that cave you can see there in the middle of the picture. As we got closer to the cave, we then had to get a little more creative on how we went crawling up the side of this mountain to get into the cave. There were only a couple spots that there involved a little special steps and step on this rock and that rock, although it certainly was no Disney World, everything with handrails. And so this made me a little nervous.
All the way up to the highest rock, 2 hands to get yourself up. Both feet on the highest rock.
So we got into this cave and it was interesting. I've never been in something like this before. Now this is where it did feel like a Disney theme park attraction, but this was all natural. The ground was rough like you've seen before, and what was really interesting were the fact that there are these bats everywhere. You can see if you look they're all hanging around, and you could smell the bat guano in the cave.
Welcome to the Batman cave. Oh, people, these bats are not going to be stuck in your hair, or I would not be doing doing this tour. Keep that in mind. So you're safe with me. Remember, in the movies, the bad guy dies first. Now I'm the guy right here. No dying. Yeah.
That's where the dinosaur comes from behind and eats them.
Now, people, this all used to be actually underwater. That's why you get the different colors. They're actually minerals. It's mostly zinc, copper, iron. Those are the minerals you're going to get in these caves. Of course, I'm a tour guide, not a biologist, so not too many mineral questions, people.
We then scrambled through the back part of the caves, having to duck, and crawled up and got on top of this rock now, where we had this great view of where we had been earlier, and down below we could see our little ATVs. So this was quite the adventure. Now, if you look, the ground here is that rough ground we saw earlier. So I got out, I did a picture or two, and then I decided I don't really want to be stumbling around here on the edge of nothing on rough ground, and decided it was time to back away from the edge. So I chose not to pose for future selfies on the edge like these brave people did. So then it was time to head back. So we walked back down the hill. You can see I was leading the retreat back to our ATVs. We drove about another 30 minutes back through off-road, then onto road, then off-road again, and back to the home where we were able to take our final selfies, as you can see, wave at the camera, and then be done. So overall, I had a good time. I enjoyed this adventure. I would recommend Eric's ATV Adventures to people wanting to check out some of the island and get away from the tourists. They have two. This was the East Adventure. There's a West one as well. It's much longer. I also look forward to trying more ATV adventures. I know that many of my cruise ports have these, so I'm going to give those a shot, and I might actually even buy one of my own and check out the trails here in Ontario. So that's it. Thanks for joining me on my big ATV adventure. Take care, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.